Okay, I'm continuing with the Prokofiev 6, first movement, più mosso del tempo primo. So noticing on this figure meanders up and down because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 12 notes up and down, and we're in 4/4. There's an uneven, not an uneven number of notes. It just means that we get to the bottom halfway into the second measure. So this is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it gets back down to the C sharp. There's a little slur stress. Two hands on C. So left hand doesn't do doing much, and then it responds. That's how he sets the left hand up for the its line. So. Huge fan of finger changing on repeated notes. This is slow enough, and in a situation where I'm not likely to do that much, especially when the part of the hand is pinned, there's no advantage whatsoever to changing fingers. And the thumb rotates around the pivot of the fifth finger, fifth and third, very easily. It likes being. I think it prefers being the pivot itself, but it's perfectly happy being tossed around like that. 3, 4, then it moves. So. To remember where it starts, he set up the C. It's worth it to me not to start on thumb this time if I know what's coming. Starting on 2 sets the angle of my hand better. Otherwise, I have to do extremely quick swivel. The new entry, because Prokofiev is making clear that canonic entry is important. Well, again, this is one of those arbitrary finger places when I play these repeated notes. It's just, right for now, it seems most fun to play it all with thumbs and keep the pivot. And I've got to remember the extra note in the right hand. Spacing is the same way. Well, no, this figure starts on. Okay, so this arpeggio is a little different. There's not just the topography of it, but the notes, the intervals themselves. Minor third, whole step, minor third, whole step, minor third, minor third. even one major third here that doesn't exist in the other. Actually, several, because on the top we get an augmented chord. So, and there's not a recurrence either because of that. In other words, here we go back and forth, but here we get new notes. A mighty pile chord. At least it goes up and down the same way. That's useful to know. Natural fingering choice. Turn to the thumb on E. It gives you the standard diminished chord fingering. And for my hand, 5-4 on the top. Alternatively, 5-3 on the top. But 5-4 for any hand that can go 5-3, 5-4 between thirds keeps the hand much more passive here. You don't have to twist. You can keep the relative relationship of the fingers more neutral, more relaxed. So I choose that whenever I get the chance. Whoops. And when I get to play the right notes too. Okay, good. The diminished feel. So it's those positions. 1, 2, 3 positions. Not that they're static positions. I don't sit there with my fingers right under those positions, obviously, but for comfort, I always let my arm move my hand to the point where each finger feels that its position is optimized relative to the hand. So, the diminished, whoops. Unexpected feeling, which is not unpleasant, is the A flat, which is close to the thumb. So it's a small position followed by a somewhat larger extension. There we go. Orienting to the E here and then feeling oriented to the F here. That helps me very much, conceptually and physically. F. F. Good. Okay. To make that diminished even more intense, he brings over the left hand and reinforces the augmentedness of it. How do I find it? Let's see. It's just a pile. It's a pile of major thirds. So. Like C. Why not? C on the bottom, reinforce on the top. So I'm down here. The question is, how long do I write down here? This is a very long chord, so it's going to decay. It's one of those instances where the literalness of the notation cannot be taken to heart. It's a held note, held note, held note, and then I have to go here. So I could either choose to link that with pedal, or more likely just let the decay take place naturally and let go of the long note when it's necessary to get up to the top. So it'll have its own natural physical timing. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that younger pianists make, is to feel so duty-bound and diligent about what is notated that it says you should hold this whole note for a whole note. And then there is no time left to move. So there always has to be time to move, and space takes time. So I was maybe a quarter note off early. There we go. So he does it again, and this time there's more motion that it's harder than the other times. I just want to make sure I'm seeing this. I could actually be looking at this silently. I could have looked ahead and said, oh, okay, he's going to make that arpeggio. This is going to come at the top, and he's going to do it again. This is going to come at the top. He's going to do it a third time. The second and third time being ones with this melodic tempo. And at the top, on the fourth time, the left hand continues. The third time that the left hand does that, the right hand. Okay, I find 1, 3, 2, 1, the easiest in the right hand on the way down. I get to 1, I've always have been getting to 1. Makes the repeated note very easy and the slur automatic. So. Okay, here's one of those ledger lines. I do have to count for you. 97, 8, 9, 100, 1, 7, 8, 9, 100, 1, 2, 3, 104, 5, 6, 7, 108, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 116, 17, 18, 19, 120. Okay, so when I get to 108, 109, this is what I call an educated guess. There's ledger lines, but because I'm learning this piece, it's a new piece, I want to make sure that I'm learning it right. So I look at that ledger line. My educated guess leads me in this fashion. The top note is middle C, there's no doubt there. The next one has a bunch of ledger lines, and it's a space note. And it looks, because it's a different kind of note, in other words, it's a space note instead of a line note, I know that it's an even interval. Second, fourth, sixth, eighth or octave, 10th, etc. If it were the same kind of note, it would be an odd interval, a third, a fifth, a seventh, etc. So I'm going to make an educated guess that that bottom note I'm seeing is a C sharp, especially because then the top note writes itself and becomes a C sharp. Now I'm going to check. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 ledger lines, so C and A. That's the note below. So it is a C sharp. I don't want to waste any more energy on doubting it, so I just write it. So in this case, the educated guess was right. It doesn't have to be. It could have been an A sharp. It could have been something else, but it looked about like an octave. So that's what you need to do is, at the very least, put it into the camp of a major or minor, of an even or odd interval. The most likely ones being octaves. Okay, now because it's an exposed repeated note in the right hand with nothing gluing the hand down, I am going to use a repeated note fingering. I changed. First of all, maybe I'll go 5 to 4 at the top of this. What I didn't notice is the first 3 notes are slurred, so which is all the better. And then well, what I noticed before is when I was doing this on C, second finger aided my hand a lot. When I found myself doing 1 to 2, I didn't much like it. So if that's true, if I want to be on 2 on D, thinking back, then I'd be on 1 on the last of a 4-note group. That means 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2. Nice, okay. Very often I use the reverse fingering. In other words, I'll start, especially if there's an accent, with the thumb and arrive on the thumb. I much prefer that in general, but 4, 3, 2, I'm still arriving on the thumb, it's just not on the accent. But in this case, the advantage is it sets my hand up perfectly. Okay, so let's go back. careful here. There's a grace note in the left hand. And since I don't have great eyesight, I have to peer very carefully. A flat to C. Okay, so what's happening? It's a little bit of a crush going into this 3-note chord on measure 111. So. The net effect is that it makes the D that much more significant, which is as it should, because we're going B to C sharp, and then C sharp is melodically a D, so that's great. In other words, we have a reason. That's always better in terms of learning it, in terms of commitment. But you help to lead other people's ears towards that place, to that line. Second finger coming up, and I'll probably wait to have the D's be together. By now I should recognize that the continuing voice has that doubled note. Either 4-2 going to 1, I can reach either way, it's non-legato, or 5-3 going to 2. Let me see. It's just a E. For a smaller hand, 5-3-2 would be more appropriate. For me, I prefer the 2-4 to start with because it's there. It's much easier to grab without thought. 5-3 requires a little bit of aim or thoughtful placement. 4-2 just grabs, and then I can swing my thumb up here. Okay, so it's left hand has the obvious melody, and that D, the D has a delayed continuation. In other words, the D is part of the melody. Let's go back to where the B theme, in this case. I think when people learn Prokofiev, a lot of the time, when we're used to having the same theme, say, sung in a dominant key, or the relative minor or major or whatever, and he chooses things that are often stepwise apart, which for memory purposes is often a little disorienting and hard to remember. So when we first see it, it's on the C. Now we have one whole step up. Maybe not as hard as a half step, but you know, it's just one of those things that's very Prokofiev. Again, I'm in a place where I could use any number of fingerings, so I'm trying not to be completely arbitrary. I'm looking ahead to 116, where my left hand again is going to have to play repeated notes glued to the F sharp. So a tritone apart. So the likeliest solution is to change fingers on the F sharp. And you go 1, 4 to 1, then shift to fourth finger. Okay, in a moment I'll have some fingering decisions to make in the left hand. absolutely sure that when I start this theme on D in the right hand, I have second finger. It makes a big difference to me. It looks as if I've been repeating on second finger. I may as well take ownership for that. This tritone feels good for the hand. In fact, it feels great. It's one of those fingerings that I file under absolutely the best. Tritone, right hand, black, white. He makes an enharmonic shift from D flat to C sharp. Do you hear it? Me too. From the A motive, which we haven't heard in a while. Oh, I need to have changed my finger in my left hand. Left hand shifts too. They both shift to B. Now the question is that the way they shift? Because I could be moving my hands both down by octave. The way he's notated it, even though he hasn't said right hand over or under or indicated the right hand, the top staff is getting the bottom note. So I think that's probably the easiest thing. The left hand doesn't have to move very far. That makes perfect sense. But I had to know that. I can't just be bullied by the score, because sometimes the score suggests the screwiest things, or at least something that is particularly uncomfortable for you, and you have to make sure to take ownership for the decision. If there's a possibility, if there's a decision to be made. And now I have to figure out what to get to. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. Or if I prefer my 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. I don't want to say I'm overthinking it. I'm recognizing the arbitrariness of it. It's one of those places where there are many, many possible fingerings. So I want to be simple about it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But I want it to make sense. I might do something as simple as that. I'm going to notate it for now as 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2. It's slow enough that it doesn't require a virtuosic kind of repeat fingering. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4. So I'm going to do a double 4, 4, 3. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. Okay. Decision made for now. Let's see. Let's go back. Okay, I'm feeling cold, and if I try to bully my way with my fingers through this slightly awkward series of major thirds, it's not going to work terribly well. So what I want to remind myself now and forever is what I do that makes it completely dependable. Well, I mentioned this particular figuration before. It's in a different place when it first appears. I mean, he plays it in a variety of keys. white to black, white, to black, white. Black. Okay, so the sensation under the hand. White is the same as at the beginning. And for me, again, this, under normal circumstances, if I'm evening out 3 and 5, has me turned slightly thumb. This one has me turned slightly toward the black note, inward to the left. This one has me turned the reverse direction. The best of those three in terms of basic comfort is the last one. So I want to be going towards comfort. There's going to be a slight angled shift there. To be guaranteed that even in the coldest of circumstances, that this is going to work, I want to make sure that I aim for that comfort there. My arm tosses my hand, so I do not have to rely on my fingers to grab side by side. That's good. So that's it. To look. I'll tell you how I look. I look because my right hand is done playing. It's going to be ready way early. And then I look at my left hand because it's playing. I look where I'm going to go, and all goes well. So I just slogged my way through that. I wanted to see what surprises might have been in store for me. It's going to the same place. It's going to the low B. It's coming up to this F sharp A. It's finding the middle register. Yeah. I have to remind myself of the physical approach for that motive, but it's the keeping track. In other words, this is one of those places where memory and understanding are pretty well the same thing. In other words, I have to have stored the information in the score to be able to play this adequately, because I'm going to be spending an awful lot of time with my attention on the keyboard and on my hands, as opposed to in the score. So it helps me to internalize the score. So we have this motive, then it crosses on middle register down. So 1, 2, down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's sort of an augmentation. In other words, it takes me twice as long in this case. Sitting down there, I get a reiterated beat. Something new. The third this time with the second attachment. And I should know that's part of a... Well, actually, that's much more part of the left-hand voice. It's going like this, so... Let's think of it that way for now. So we have... Okay, so one advantage of all this busyness in the right hand, it doesn't go back down down to the low B for a while. So that's stabilizing. Meanwhile, the left hand becomes more insistent. It also changes notes. So Prokofiev very conveniently, instead of making it all non-legato, puts a stress and a slur on the downbeat, on the beats, the strong beats. Back to repeated notes. These repeats are so slow that something even like 5/5, when it's convenient, is perfectly reasonable. Especially because I'm going to put an accent on the 4 afterwards and then just fling to 5/3. And I haven't, 1/3, excuse me. So 4/3, 2, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. That's really nice. Triplet quarter triplets out of the motive in the left hand for a change. So